Hey everybody, welcome to the Kickstarter preview for Town Center. Here you can see the box from an older edition. I don't know if the box and the components I'm going to show you are going to be exactly like, what the new one's going to be like, or if it's going to be a little different. I think you can get a good sense of the quality of art and components and things that I'll show you in the walkthrough from this video though. And the game is basically an abstract game slash a city building game. And it marries the two nicely. Now what players are going to be doing is they're going to be drafting these different colored cubes and assembling them in their little player board here. And these are large cubes I'll show you in a second. And they act as different things like offices and shops and apartments and power and different things like that. And trying to kind of come up with the best configuration and generate money during the game, which will be worth victory points, as well as generating a bunch of victory points at the end of the game. So let's jump in and I'll show you how it works, and then I'll come back and give you my thoughts on it. So here you can see all the components that you're going to get in the game. The rules are very simple. This is actually in 2 languages, but the rules are basically a front and back of the sheet. And each player is going to get a player board, which you can see here. And then there's also going to be a mass of these nice large cubes here. So there'll be cubes in different colors, and they mean different things. And you also get a bag here, so you're going to seat the bag with different amounts of each of the different colored cubes based on the number of players. So you can have 6 green cubes per player and 4 yellow cubes and so on. If we zoom into a player board here, you can actually see the sequence of play kind of nicely outlined here. This particular board is missing a phase 5 here. You can see we've got phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. But as I said, this is an older edition. And then you've also got a little money track here. You've got sort of your 10s and your 1s. So you can see you start with $3, and then as you gain money, you're going to go up. And then if you go up, in the denomination of 10s, you're going to move that one up. Each player gets a purple cube here, which is considered City Hall. You can put that anywhere in this central 9 squares here. Now this is also basically considered an office, which is important, but I'll explain more about that later. You also have the suburbs out here, but you don't really want to build any cubes out here because you can see it's going to be worth -1 point for each cube out there. So the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to do a draft, and based on the number of players, you're going to basically be passing around this cloth bag full of cubes. Whoever has the bag as the start player, they're going to pull out stacks of 2 cubes at a time. So in a 3-player game, we may have cubes stacks that look like that. And then in player order, players are going to have to choose the top cube from a stack. So maybe player 1 chooses that, and then player 2 chooses this one, and then player 3 maybe chooses that one. And then we go back around, and then each player maybe has their little sets of cubes there. Now in the first round, you don't want to draw any offices here, which are the red cubes. So if you draw any offices, you throw them back, but in further rounds, you'll leave them out. Now once you take the cubes, you're going to have to build them. And so here you can see what all the cubes are. So again, purple is City Hall, which is basically an office, which will make more sense in a minute. And then you have offices. If you take an office as one of the cubes that you draft, which again won't be happening in the first round, you'll have to pay $5. So you need to have the money there to be able to take it and then place it on the board. You've got apartments here, which are green, shops, which are blue, and then elevators slash parking, which are black. So they can be basically 2 things. So if they're flat like this, then this would make up one big elevator if they're only 1 story high. But if you had a stack of them, that would be considered an elevator. So it's parking if they're flat, and then elevator if they build up there. And then you have your power, your AC/DC here. And to have a working elevator, you need power adjacent to it. So to be able to create the elevator here, you need to have it be powered. And adjacency is actually very interesting in this game. So right now this yellow cube here is adjacent to the purple office as well as this elevator. Now if we had something like this here, let's say we were able to stack that up, then these 2 cubes here are also considered adjacent and will actually form one large apartment because they're adjacent, vertically there. And the other thing to keep in mind here is that you can never stack cubes higher than your highest elevator cube, and you can never stack anything higher than 5. So you have a height limit of 5, and you can never stack at all in the suburbs. So the suburbs can only have 1 cube in them, but again, you don't really want to build in the suburbs. So that's kind of a general overview. So you're going to draft these and then set them out. Now the other thing to keep in mind is you cannot set a green cube or an apartment next to another apartment, and you cannot stack a blue cube adjacent to another blue cube. So again, adjacent is either this way or this way, like so. Or if we were to try to put a blue cube here, then that would be considered adjacent because it's on the same level as that blue cube, and there's no adjacents diagonally. So once you set your cubes out, remembering to pay $5 for any offices, then you're going to have some expansion, and this is where the interesting part of the game really is. So after you have your cube set out, you're going to take a look at your configuration, and things are going to develop, and you can see that here based on this iconography here. So if we take a look at this, it's very simple. Offices will trigger apartment growth, which will trigger shop growth. So basically, if you think of it thematically, you have jobs, which are going to produce homes, and homes are going to produce shops where those homeowners and workers can consume. So first, let's take a look at how the apartments are going to develop. Now, you need basically one more office than the number of cubes in the apartment. So if we had this configuration here, we have 2 offices adjacent to this 1 cubed apartment. If that happens, it's going to have growth. Now, when you have growth and development, you have to do it. So if you somehow block this off, and then the only place for this apartment to grow would be out here, you're going to have to do it. So that's something you got to keep in mind as you're building these up here. So in this case, we've got no elevator, so we can't grow up, right? Because remember, the height is limited by the elevator. So the best idea would be to grow out this way here. So now that this is formed to one big apartment, then the only way this is going to grow if it's adjacent to 3 offices. So we'd need another office, you know, maybe here or something like that. And then it will grow again. Now shops are going to grow based on the number of different apartments. So if we had this shop here, this is actually only adjacent to the 1 apartment, because once the apartments and shops kind of grow together, they're just going to form a larger configuration. So we need a different apartment here, like so. So now this is shop adjacent to 2 different apartments. But it's got really nowhere to grow because, again, we don't have our elevator. And I can't stress enough how important that is. So if we had an elevator, we could grow up. But if we didn't have the elevator, then we'd be forced to grow out here into the suburbs. So that's the development. First, you're going to grow the apartments, and then possibly the shops, and then you're going to get some income here. Now, you always get $1 worth of income basically for your office. You get that every round. And then you're going to take a look at your powered shops. So right now we don't have any powered shops, so we're not going to get anything. But let's say we had this kind of configuration here, and I'm going to break a little bit of the placement rules here. So let's say we had these guys here. This had been developed earlier, and now we have this is being powered because it's adjacent to a power supply. So we're going to take a look at the total cubes in the shop. So for the first cube you get $1. For the next cube you get $2. So that would be $3 total. If somehow we had worked it so it was like this here, then this again would all be adjacent. So we'd get 1 plus 2 plus 3. So it would be $6. Plus you get a bonus for height. You don't get any money for, you know, a ground level, but since we're on the 2nd level here, we'll get another $1. So we've got again 6 plus 1 would be 7. If it was a little bit higher, we get another $2. So again, this would be 4 here. So let's take a look at the total cubes. We get 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus we'd get 11, 13. Okay? Now the nice thing about that, it's not that difficult to do. Once you do it a couple times, you get the hang of it. But there is a chart here in the rule book, so we can look at the size here is 4, and then the height is 3, so it would be 13, just like we said there. So you look at size and then just the total height, and it even could be where, let's say we had, you know, something like this, and then you're just going to look at the highest cube and then go adding 1 plus 2 plus 3, you know, in the first level is 0. So anyway, I'm making that sound more complicated than it really is. It's difficult to explain, but once you understand it, it's not difficult to figure out. So you're going to get money again for the office, for any of the powered shops, and then for any parking lots. So parking lots again are just the flat black cubes, and if they're in a stack, they're considered an elevator. And you're just going to take the number of adjacent cubes. So this is considered one big elevator. So you've got 1, 2, 3 cubes there, so you would get $3 for that. So this is the elevators are kind of the parking lots are kind of a interesting way to get income early, and then you kind of go away from them as you build up more powered shops and your city starts to take shape. So after the fourth phase, we have a fifth phase, not depicted here, but you can then, if you want, buy a black cube or a power. And the price is going to go up. So right now we have 1 yellow cube. If we didn't have any yellow cubes, we could buy our first one for 5. But then our next one is now going to cost us 10, and then the third one will be 15, and it's similar for the black cube. So like I said, the elevators are important. You want to get things powered. So if you get behind and you kind of get sort of screwed out of the drafting of those cubes, there is a way then to sort of catch up, because you can get very height limited, and then you're forced to build in the suburbs. You don't want to do that. And then you're going to play basically 10 rounds. The number of cubes that you put in the cloth bag will dictate that. So when it's empty, you know that it's the last round of the game. At the end of the game, you can see here you get 1 point for every $5. And the handy thing with this scoring track is you can figure it out. So let's say at the end of the game, I don't know, I had $35, let's say. Okay, so we know that's 7 points, so I can go ahead and knock that down. So there's my 7 points. And then you can go and figure out the number of powered apartments. You can see that there, and that's figured out the same way that you figure out the number of powered shops for money, but this time you're just getting points. And again, it's very easy. Just refer to the chart. So if I had a size 6 apartment that was up to size 4, you get 27 points for that. So the chart's very handy just to figure that out. And that's how you play the game, basically drafting cubes in stacks of 2, putting those 2 cubes out onto the board somewhere. Again, keeping in mind you can't automatically place a green next to another green or a blue next to another blue. And then, of course, keeping in mind the height limit based on the height of your elevator. After that, you do the development, possibly buy another cube or so, and then you keep generating income every round till the end of the game. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. Like I said at the beginning, this is a very unique game. It has a lot of very abstract qualities in terms of where to place the cubes and some of the restrictions about automatically placing green next to green and blue next to blue, because you want to place those in such a way that so that when they are adjacent to offices and trigger all the development, they're going to grow in the way that you expect. And so it's going to take a couple of plays to sort of get your head around that and realize the importance of the elevator and managing your money and possibly setting up those yellow cubes to power up all your apartments by the end of the game and really grow a nice good size apartment. So it's very, very interesting that it's so abstract on one hand, but on the other hand it actually feels really thematic, because like I said, you need offices, which is employment, to have real estate happen, and then have your sort of secondary market, your service industries and your shops and everything happen like that. And then you need a little bit of a power infrastructure, the elevator and the cube kind of manage that. So it's very interesting, and the draft is very interesting, how they have sort of the stacks of 2. So there's a little bit of gamesmanship there about, like, okay, if I take this one, then I'm going to reveal, let's say the black cube for the elevator. So the person's going to take that, they're going to be set in terms of their height growth and things like that. So there's a little gaminess that happens there that I like, gaminess in a good way, I think, with that. So definitely a unique game. I would definitely take a look at it. And I don't know, it's just very, very unique, very interesting game. So anyway, there you go, Town Center. Thanks.